All right, let's wrap this thing up with what we're calling superlatives.
Woo.
And I just mentioned we'll get to cornerback because I did want to give him a moment to shine. Because let's start with best value, where we both agree just by sitting around and waiting, which is not really Howie Roseman's bag. That's not what Howie likes to do.
But he still gets, how is he still getting away with this?
He sits around at 22 and takes the first cornerback in this year's draft.
Without even having to do any work.
Toledo,
at least Howie usually has to work for it.
Exactly. Toledo cornerback Quinyon Mitchell goes at 22. He's the first cornerback off the board. It's the longest a cornerback has had to wait to get drafted since 2019.
Which was already 5 years
You hang
ago.
back and just get, you didn't have to say that.
I did.
You hang back and get some fantastic value. The Eagles had an obvious need at corner. I feel like they chose that over offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
First time they've drafted a receiver or a cornerback in the first round since Lito Shepherd.
Wow.
Which was a really long time ago. Let's move to biggest gamble. We don't have to spend a ton of time here because we already said it, but I really think when it's all said and done, maybe even more so than Caleb, Jaden, and Drake. Because again, we expected that.
Sure.
We thought all three of those guys would be gone within the first 3 to 4 picks of this draft.
Absolutely.
What's going to stand out forever when you think back on this in the years to come is Michael Penix Jr. going 8th overall to a team that had a $180 million quarterback and
who hasn't even played it down for them
who
yet.
has not even played it down, who hasn't taken the field for practice in Atlanta yet. And then Bo Nix going 12th overall to Denver, seemingly way earlier than most people thought. Those, I don't know how you can come up with anybody but those two teams when you're talking about doing something risky.
Very, very risky. And not to mention, like we were talking about before with Michael Penix, you're not going to know if this risk paid off for the next few years, which in and of itself is a risk. Because Terry Fontenot does not have job security necessarily 4 years down the line. It blows my mind.
It's something I'm going to remember. There's something every now and then that you'll remember forever in the NFL draft. Actually, Atlanta's trade up for Julio Jones years and years ago, which turned out really well,
great.
Is
really
another
great.
thing. Add this into the chapter.
Yes.
We're going to remember this years from now, either very, very fondly or maybe not so much. We'll see. Let's wrap it up. A team, all things considered, or a superlative, all things considered, we haven't probably talked enough about this team. Let's go to best winner. We didn't talk that much about him because it's boring, because we've known Caleb Williams was going to go to the Chicago Bears since December. But Caleb Williams is the biggest winner of night one of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore,
not just the Bears.
Not just the Bears organization.
Caleb Williams himself.
Caleb Williams himself for becoming the number 1 overall pick, but also an hour and a half after getting drafted, finds out that one of the top receivers in this draft is now on his team.
It's his built-in bestie.
And his receiver core is
his built-in bestie.
DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Keenan Allen. Oh, and DeAndre Swift is playing running back. Oh, and Cole Kmet is at tight end.
You got a new offensive coordinator in Shane Waldron.
Who's a bigger winner than Caleb Williams, knowing that he is the toast of Chicago?
Yeah.
And I mean, not to be too cynical, but has a ton of millions of dollars now guaranteed in his name.
Yeah, well, he's had that for a while. But allow me to wax a little bit poetic about this because I have something.
You're from Chicago.
I'm from Chicago.
You say what you need to say.
I have something up on foxsports.com right now just about what Caleb Williams could mean to the city itself. And the city that has been starved for any sort of flashy, fun, offensive football. This is not something the Bears have ever had. It's not something they've ever seen in their city limits. And when I tell you that Chicago is a football town, I know the Blackhawks had their dynasty. I know the Cubs broke their 108-year-old curse in 2016. I know the Bulls had the 90s glory years, but when I tell you the city will erupt if the Bears manage sustained success and actually make it to a Super Bowl on the back of Caleb Williams and the team that Ryan Poles built, which is the best situation a quarterback taken first overall has ever come into. I can't imagine the generations of Chicago Bears fans that are affected by that. because it's not only the generations that are watching now. Think about how the Bears still talk about the 1985 Super Bowl team. Think about the legacy that has lasted 40 years in that city. And now, if you can build an actual team that sees success year in and year out, the team will be remembered forever in Chicago, and they deserve it.
So now everyone wearing navy and orange listening to this is ready to run through a wall. And I think that I'm going to emphasize it one more time. The cool thing for the Bears is usually when you draft a talent like Caleb Williams, he is stepping into an awful situation. And you as a fan are saying, maybe in a few years will be something. You know, Joe Burrow is a great example. The Bengals were not these Bengals then. It wasn't built.
Right.
It's here. It's ready. And I'm not trying to say the Bears are going to make the Super Bowl, but they are ready to play fun, competitive football right now and change the way that the league looks at them today. And that is a very rare place to be when you just got done picking number 1 overall in the draft. And that is why Caleb Williams is the biggest winner. Therefore, the Chicago Bears as well.